What is up, YouTube? Gonna do another quick video here on a regular guy's perspective on a pretty nice piece. Doing this one because I didn't see a whole lot of information, didn't see a whole lot of perspective from a regular guy's perspective. Again, if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I'm not law enforcement, I'm not military. I'm just a guy with an addiction like most of us. And it's an expensive addiction, as you can tell. So what do we have here? We have the Masterpiece Arms DS drumroll 40. Yes, this is a DS40. So let's address the elephant in the room as to why I have a 40 Smith & Wesson MPA. Initially, my plan was to run in the limited division, and in limited division you need to make major power factor to be competitive, to have the best advantage, to have the fighting chance to be competitive. If you're shooting 9mm in limited division, you're at a disadvantage. So that was the initial reason that I went out and ordered this. But in the time that it took from order to actually getting the gun, USPSA came out with the limited optics division, and luckily for me, I was ordering a gun that was already going to come optics ready. So I just said, you know what, I'll just run it in limited optics. And even though I'm running 40 Smith & Wesson, give me 1 second, I'll show you what I run exclusively. Bump my camera. Grab the box. Here we go. Yep. I run this stuff right here exclusively, this Federal Syntech action pistol. As you can see, it's the official ammunition of USPSA, 205 grain if I'm not mistaken. These are only 800 feet per second at the muzzle. Yep, velocity is 850. So these 40 Smith & Wessons are incredibly soft shooting. They're not as soft as a 9mm by any stretch of the imagination, but they are incredibly soft shooting. Put a couple of those right there just so you can see them. So quick review, my personal opinion, the good, the bad, the pros and the cons of my Masterpiece Arms. First and foremost, build quality is really good. I will say that, let me get these out of the way now that you've seen them. One of the things that I thought was odd, and it could be because I elected this finish, is you can kind of see some of the tooling marks right there. Not a big thing to me, but it is the only platform I have like this where I can actually see those marks. And my assumption is that because this is not DLC, it's not Cerakoted, it's stainless, that's why you can see the marks. Let me pull this out and do safety check for all you safety queens out there. That was the first thing I noticed about it. As soon as I got it, I noticed that the trigger was incredibly stiff. The trigger was super hard. Like, I almost had to put like a vice grip on it to get the hammer to fall. I had never experienced anything like that before. I only got the hammer to fall twice when I got it, and I could not get the trigger to operate anymore. And this is like day one bringing it home. I immediately emailed Masterpiece Arms and I sent them a video of me attempting to do so. And they replied back that the set screw and the trigger had probably worked its way out. That never even occurred to me because if you've seen some of my other videos, I have a Prodigy, I've got Staccatos, I've got Triarchs, I've got other 2011 platforms, other 1911s, and I have never ever myself actually adjusted the set screw in the trigger, but that is exactly what it was. So I looked around and found the proper way to adjust it, and I adjusted the set screw, and it's worked ever since. I will say, initially, even after adjusting the set screw and putting a little bit of blue Loctite on it, there was almost like a, let me see, right? So it's smooth now. It's incredibly smooth now, but initially there was like a false wall and then the actual wall. There was like a false wall than the actual wall. And I've run this in about 7 or 8 competitions, matches since I've done that, and it's smoothed out really nice. I think this is a 2.5 pound trigger. It is probably one of the nicest triggers that I have. Another thing, like I do with most guns, as soon as I got it, first chance I got, as soon as I got the optical one, I took it out to run it. And in 500 rounds, I did have, I'll call them 2 failures to feed. Twice I had rounds just kind of nose into the feed ramp and they wouldn't cycle. Now, it wasn't any of these right here. It didn't happen with any of these. I was using some trash Winchester ball, white box stuff, and I had that happen twice in 500 rounds. When I came home to do some dry fire, some practice with it, because now I am running an actual competition holster. I've been running like a duty style holster and the level 1 stuff, and they've kind of been letting me do it, but since I want to progress, I've actually gotten an actual competition style holster. So I was doing some dry fire practice, and I have some dummy rounds, and I also had that same malfunction with dummy rounds, just cycling the slide by hand. Took the gun apart, cleaned it really good after that first range trip, lubed everything up, put it back together, and I have not had an issue with it since, knock on wood. And at this point, I'm probably close to, I'd say a little over 1,000 rounds in, because you don't shoot a whole lot with these matches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14. I'm probably more around 13 or 1,400 rounds at this point, because I've only used it for competition after that initial 0, and I have not had an issue with it since. Only takes these MBX mags. If you don't know, these are worth their weight in gold because they are incredibly expensive. I bought some of the longer ones. These are 24s, I do believe. I think I have a 26. Don't quote me on the numbers there, but these are the ones that came with it. But I've bought some of the longer ones from MBX, and I bought the competition style ones where the slide is not locked back. Gas pedal here. Nitro fin gas pedal. It did not drop in. Nitro fin actually has a really good video on their webpage about how to fit these. So I got my micrometer out and I measured the difference between the factory slide stop, slide release, and pretty much everything was about the same spec except for one part of it. So I just got my Dremel out and I worked on it, and it finally dropped right in. Haven't had any issues with that at all. I was gonna put the 507 comp from Holosun on here, but you know, they've taken forever and 10,000 years to release those. I actually do have one. I got one last week and I have it on another gun. So I found a used RMR on eBay, and I had this Jaegerworks shroud laying around because I had intended to use it on something else, but the SRO didn't fit on the other gun I wanted to put the shroud on. So I used it on this one. Other than that, I mean, the gun is fantastic. It is incredibly heavy. Of all the 2011s I have, this is the only one that is completely all metal, right? Metal. This is not a polymer grip module. I do believe I like to get the aluminum one. It is incredibly aggressive. It was almost uncomfortably aggressive when I first got it, but this thing is incredibly soft shooting. I took silver in the first responder games with it. I've had a couple stage wins with it. It's been great thus far. No regrets on buying the 40 Smith & Wesson. This Syntech ammo is actually not that expensive. You just have to find it. It's only slightly more expensive than 9mm, because I know 40 can be kind of expensive. You kind of have to look around to find this. I found a website that seems to always have it in stock, and I've been buying from them, ever since. Absolutely love the gun. As you see, it is the way it came from Masterpiece Arms. The only thing that I added was the nitro fin and the optic. Everything else is as it comes. I will say that I was a little put back that the set screw on the trigger had worked its way out when I initially got the gun. Again, considering I have other 2011 or double stack 1911 style guns at different price points, some even more expensive than this one, and I had never had that issue before, but I got a super quick response from Masterpiece Arms once I sent them the video. They told me what to do, and I haven't had an issue with it since. The only other thing I might change eventually, I just haven't gotten around to it, is this is the only one of these style guns that I have that has that guide rod where you need like a paper clip or something to get it out. I might switch this out with a Dawson Precision. But other than that, it is fantastic. It is well worth the money. It's probably one of the smoothest types of guns that I have of this platform. No regrets whatsoever. I wish I had known that they were going to come out with this limited optics division before I got it, because I probably would have gotten it in 9mm. But now that I found this ammo, and I know how soft this ammo is, and even though it's only 805 feet per second, the gun still cycles. I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. I might still use it in limited optic because the plate that goes on here, there's only one little set screw that backs this on and off, and you can go right back to iron sights if I do decide to do so. It's already IDPA legal. It's USPSA legal the way it comes from the factory. And through the matches that I've shot thus far, I was shocked at how many people actually are running Masterpiece Arms. So they are taking off. I actually shot a match 2 weeks ago, and there was 3 people in my squad that were shooting Masterpiece Arms. And I don't know if they were a sponsored team or not, but there was a team out there that were all wearing Masterpiece Arms shirts. So they are definitely up and coming. So I have no regrets. I mean, once I got the trigger worked out, and it broke itself in, you know, those couple issues I had in the first 500 rounds. Not shocking there either, because I have some other platforms that are high end and really tightly fit, and they did have to be shot a little bit to start to run a little bit smoother. That whole idea that, you know, fresh out the box a gun should run, I understand that and I get that concept, but when we're not talking about a polymer gun, when we're talking about a gun that's hand fit to really tight tolerances, I can understand a little bit of a break-in period. So if you're in the market for one of these, you won't regret it at all. They are very a la carte. I've seen some other people that have these on the internet, and they have options as far as how you can get these things decked out. I've seen them in all gold. I've seen them in all red. So if that's the kind of stuff that you're into, you probably just have to make a phone call or send them an email and say, hey, this is how I want my gun done. And I guarantee they will do it for you. Not a whole lot of information that you probably didn't already know, but I just want to give you my 2 cents and let people see this, especially because I saw on some forums and some stuff like that a lot of people had questions about these with their Masterpiece Arms or with their 2011s in general. The reason I went with this one is because I saw a picture of one on their webpage that had this exact same gas pedal in it. So I hope that information helps someone to make a good decision and go ahead and pick one of these up.